Okay, boys and girls, we are starting our poetry unit. I'm so excited. But before we start getting into reading and writing different types of poetry, I think it's important for us to think about the differences between stories and poetry. Okay, so before we get started, I want to make sure you have a few things. In your reading folder, you should have a poem titled Once the Wind, and then also a packet that has the poem titled Shadows as the first page. I want to make sure you have both of those things before we get started. Okay, so go ahead and make sure you have both of those with you and ready. So let's start thinking about the similarities between stories and poetry. Oh, sorry. When we read stories, we look for deeper meaning, right? Of course. We talk about the messages and the themes and the lessons that we learn. And of course, we've talked a lot about the fact that every author writes with a purpose, right? And that purpose is often, or most often, to teach us something. Guess what? In poetry, we do the same thing. When we read poetry, we can also ask ourselves, what's this really about? Just as we would with a story. What are we really trying to learn, or what is the author trying to teach us, right? They're not just aimlessly or blindly writing about something. They have a purpose. So let's read a haiku. A haiku is a type of poem. O snail, climb Mount Fuji, but slowly, slowly. Let's think about it. Is this poem just about snails and mountains, or is it about something more? What do you think? Think about it for a minute. I think it helps us to think about what's happening in the poem, to discover the deeper meaning. What exactly is this snail going through, right? That's going to help us to realize what bigger lesson the person who wrote the poem was trying to teach us. Think for another moment. In this poem, the words are telling us that the snail is climbing a mountain very slowly, right? It might mean that a snail can climb a mountain if it goes slowly. That's the literal interpretation of it, correct? Snails are tiny, mountains are huge. But if we dig a little deeper, we might decide that the deeper meaning is that, I don't know, maybe if we tackle big challenges bit by bit, slowly, like the snail, we may be able to accomplish huge things in life. So do you see how this very small, short haiku had such a big lesson in so few words, talking about this snail working its way up this mountain, but teaching us the lesson that if we try really, really hard and we work at something, even though we're working against something that's bigger than us, we can actually achieve great things if we continue to persevere. Now I want you to take out your copy of Once the Wind, which is a material that I told you to take out before we started the lesson. Go ahead and take that out. We're going to read that. I want you to go ahead and read that on your own, and I want you to think about the deeper meaning of the poem. Do the work that we just did together. Think it not only about the literal interpretation of what you're reading, but the deeper meaning in the poem. What's happening? Read it a couple times. We've talked about reading things over and over again to get the best understanding of what you're reading as possible. I also posted a copy of this attached to your Google Classroom assignments for the day. Okay, now that you've read it, I want to try to answer some questions that you might be asked after you read a poem similar to this. So here's a question one might pose to you after you read this poem. Which statement reflects the theme of Once the Wind? We all know that theme refers to the lesson or the moral of a story or a poem, the purpose of the author's writing. A, thing and nature can work together. B, We all have qualities that make us special. C, it's silly to be jealous and angry at what others know. D, all things in nature have beauty in common. Think for a minute about which options would you eliminate and which do you think could be the correct answer? The correct answer is B. We all have qualities that make us special. The sea and the wind learned that they were different and they should appreciate what makes them different. Okay, now it's time for you to go off and work on your own. I want you to take the second material that I told you to have ready at the beginning of the lesson, which is the poem titled Shadows. And I want you to read it on your own and then answer the accompanying multiple choice questions that are with it in that packet. Don't go ahead to the next poem because we're going to do that most likely tomorrow. But I want you to work on reading this poem a few times, thinking not only about the literal interpretation, but the deeper meaning. What could the author of the poem be trying to teach you? What bigger lesson, moral, theme, could the author's purpose be getting at? So read it a few times, highlight, underline, annotate as much as you like, and I will see you soon.